Okay, quick music disclaimer here. I do not own the rights to this music, which belongs to the rightful owner, who is the intoxicating mind of Dr. Frankenstein. So he made my intro and my outro, and I hope you guys enjoy. Check them out on Spotify and YouTube, and no copyright infringement is intended. Have a good day.
Clear choice of good versus evil, of right versus wrong.
Twisted Tales.
All of the information on this website, podcast, YouTube channel, or Spotify under the name Twisted Tales is published in good faith and for general information purposes only. Twisted Tales does not make any warranties about the completeness, reliability, and accuracy of this information. Any action you take upon the information you find on this website, podcast, or YouTube is strictly at your own risk. Twisted Tales will not be liable for any losses, damages, in connection with this podcast.
Do you like stories about haunted locations? Or maybe tales of cryptids and spooky folklore from around the world? If so, why not tune in to Haunted Escapes with Chris and Diane, where all this and more will be discussed. New episodes drop every Sunday, with visual versions the following Friday on YouTube. So why not come join us on our Haunted Escapes?
Due to the graphic nature of this program, viewer discretion is advised.
Alright, welcome back, folks. Appreciate y'all tuning back in at Twisted Tales here. So, this tale I'm going to tell you next is about a man named Melvin Skeete Jr. So this was a viewer-requested episode here from a few different viewers, people from back home. I did take this down just a couple days ago here, just to redo it, touch up a couple things here. So that's all done, so I'm going to repost it here. Now, I had this episode up here, but I took it down just to edit a few things, whatever, take out some stuff. Nothing too major, it still pertains to the story here. Now, I have spoken to some, but not all of the family. So the ones I have spoken to, like, this is where I've gotten my information from. I also have got it from, like, the court documents, everything. And everything I'm going to say in this case is going to be very graphic, so I do apologize for going ahead with all that, but it's all details of the story that need to be told. Now, Melvin is a man known for his violent outbursts, violent temper, substance abuse, run-ins with the law, plus a lot of other crazy shit along the way here. Now, he spent some time up in Waterville throughout his youth. Now, that's a youth facility jail in Nova Scotia. He would be in and out of there quite frequently over time. Now, his crimes like robbery, misdemeanors, all that shit, that eventually would get right down to murder. So, with that, my next tale that I'm going to fire off here will be about Melvin Skeete Jr. Melvin was born May 26, 1994. His mother's name was Shannon. His father's name was Neil. And Shannon was 17 years old when she gave birth to him. Neil, his father, was around 20 years old. And Melvin would be raised by Shannon, Neil, and other surrounding family members around Whitney Pear area. Obviously, the two looked after Melvin, but Neil stuck around for a little while here, taking care of the family, providing everything like that. And things didn't work out for the pair, and eventually Shannon and Neil would go their separate ways. They would keep in touch. He'd still check in every once in a while, making sure that his son had the necessities or anything else that he would need. Neil eventually met another woman, and she had children from a previous relationship. The two began seeing each other. Eventually, they would move in together. After that, Neil wasn't around for too much longer in the lives of Shannon and Melvin. But it was all cool, though, because, as I previously mentioned, Melvin was younger. He grew up in, the care of his surrounding family. So this was down along Lingan Road. At first they stayed with like Lem and Olga, that was Melvin Sr.'s parents. Then they would stay with Melvin Sr. for a bit here. Now, this was until the mother and son would get their own place, of course, right? This was up in regional housing, which is nicknamed the Chicken Coops. Now, this is located across from the hockey rink. So there's a few other buildings up that way too, and this was the one that they moved into was May Terrace. Shortly after getting their place up in the regional housing, Melvin Sr.'s relationship didn't work out, so he ended up going to an apartment here for a little bit. Melvin had got his own apartment, but his multiple sclerosis was acting up pretty hard, so he needed help to look after it. So Melvin Sr. moved in with his parents for a short time, and their names were Olga and Lem Skeete. Now, he would eventually need help with his multiple sclerosis, because this was coming on pretty fast. He went to treatment at a place called Harborview Hospital. This is located at 22 Richard Street in Sydney Mines, Nova Scotia. So this is a long-term care and a rehabilitation center. So this focuses on care of helping patients and other care for like war veterans and everything else. So since it's a long-term place and a rehabilitation center, it was like kind of split up. Like, so older folk would be there for like long-term, they'd have their division. People only there for a few months for like physio and occupational therapy, they were like one side there. And then you'd have your veteran side for your World War veterans and everything. Now, Melvin Sr., he was on the physio side of things, so he stayed for like a short time. So after his time in physio, he rented a house when he got out of the facility there. So this place he rented from a dude there, and he would make this place his cozy little home there. And this was down on William Street. When Melvin was around the age of 6, his mom noticed that he had a fascination with fire. So he'd light things on fire, he'd talk about burning stuff down, talk about other such violence. Now, think about that for a moment now. This is a 6-year-old kid having these thoughts, and that wasn't good. But Shannon, she got on the horn right away, try to get her little guy some help, right? And to see where all these thoughts and actions had come from. Now, she phoned around the probation officers and shit like that to see if they knew anything or if they could get her some help. So she ended up talking to like some doctors and everything there, and it was just a little too much with Melvin there. Like, he was damaging property of others, like just random things like that. So she had tried to get him looked at here and checked out, like at the early stages here. And not long after, like, appointments would follow, and she tried to get like results and everything for him. So she had a job lined up here in Ontario. Now, this would make her some extra money. And being a single mom at the time, just struggling to survive, right? Like, she could make more money for her and her son. And after a while, the plan was to move Melvin up there once she had gotten set up. But she wanted Melvin to stay back, finish school, and like spend time with his peers and stuff, right? So this way he could finish everything that he needed to do. And he would stay back in Cape Breton here. So his mom went up there, and she came back a few months later back to Sydney. And there were some more doctor's appointments here and evaluations and everything for young Melvin here. And his mom was there like pretty much every step of the way throughout that. Now, she described him as a fearless kid, incredibly active, and if someone had made mention that he couldn't do something, he'd set out to prove them wrong. And at times, he didn't really care to be told no by his mom. Sometimes he'd flip his shit if he didn't get what he wanted or whatever, right? So she would either give him a crack in the arse or a little slap on the hand. Nothing too major, like growing up back then, like it was all the normal, right? Like you get the wooden spoon over the ass or whatever. Like I got that, but like even though she was there with whatever, like the relationship was kind of topsy-turvy. A little bit of back and forth with the arguing and the banter or whatever. Now, at one point here, she had caught him stealing cigarettes from her purse or whatever, and she found out, so she held his hand over an oven burner as punishment here. So, I mean, that's a little intense way of punishing or whatever, but shouldn't happen. There's other ways to go about that shit too. Even some doctor's appointments here, whatever else that he had going on during the course of his life here, they noted a couple things. There was like the setting fires, petty thefts, cruelty to animals. This had also been marked on his file, so I mean, you gotta watch out for that. And I did kind of ask around about this. A couple people messaged me saying like he would take cats mostly, kind of just like pull them around by their hind legs, kind of kick them and shit like that. Scrape their faces off the ground and just laugh at the cat's bloody face, stuff like that, right? And over time, his mother actually started seeing a guy by the name of James here. So James had 2 children of his own, and they all moved in. They were all living together. Now, Melvin, over the course of this, he didn't really develop a really close relationship with either sibling. And soon enough, Melvin's mental health appointments and everything, they were all followed up with. So he was prescribed a medication for ADHD. He was reassessed in 2002. And this had shown that he had signs of oppositional defiant disorder. So I guess an example of this is, where children are very defiant, uncooperative, hostile towards their peers, parents, school teachers, other fucking officials like that. And this can be stemmed from like learned behavior or the disorder itself. And even growing up, like all the stealing smokes and everything, like it was just getting to be a little too much, right? Like everybody was noticing this shit now. And he was running with just like a bad crew at the age of 11 now. So his mother would notice, like, smokes go missing, money would go missing from his stepfather, little things like that, right? Like, I took smokes from my stepdad and everything. And, like, the stuff that his mom would notice, like, all this stuff, she'd say something and he'd say something. It would all be, like, verbal at the beginning, and then it would turn physical. At one time, Melvin ended up with a black eye here. This was on another occasion. And she kind of, like, brushed it off. Said he took a tumble down the stairs there. Obviously, like, maybe, like, there were some times when shit had gotten, like, way out of line or whatever, right? Because them arguing with one another would just never be good. And when he was about 12 years old here, the family started to notice, like, a little bit of change in his behavior. Even around his grandparents here. Like, he would always go to his grandparents' house. And then all of a sudden he just kind of dropped off and he didn't come around as much. And when she did see him there, he was just really much more quieter. Like, he didn't really have the carefree attitude that she remembered. So he kind of, little behavioral change. And could have been from drugs or whatever else that him and his friends were doing, right? Fast forward a little bit to June of 2006, so Melvin's mom was growing concerned about who he had been hanging around with, because he was smoking marijuana, taking part in like other substance abuse, and she got on the horn with some doctors, so he was psychiatrically assessed with having symptoms of conduct disorder. So conduct disorder is like kind of referring to a group of behavioral and emotional problems that are characterized by a disregard for others. So, like problems with conduct disorder is actually linked to use of pot, but I mean, they'll try to link anything together, right? But Melvin would soon have some appointments here. The doctors followed up, guidance counselors, all that other stuff from like school and everything would try to help him out too. So he would continue on, see his therapist, taking his meds for his ADHD, and this would eventually lead him to a counselor named McDonald. So she was worried about his drug use. She wanted to help him cut down, or at least try and kick the habit completely. And they ended up talking about like all his alcohol and marijuana use. She mentioned that this all started around when he was about 11 or 12. And by the time that he was 15, he was smoking it daily. And the alcohol, that was just full tilt. So he began using medication while he was drinking now too. So this was a medication called Rivotril. And over time, this would be his pill of choice. Because he'd be like on and off, getting fucked up here and there, drinking booze, taking meds. And that'll usually like lead to trouble. Like you think there's like nothing could stop you kind of thing. Like you're totally invincible, drinking booze. Yeah, it's just, you just have a don't care attitude, right? So this would lead to Melvin here having some tough times, a couple run-ins with the law. So like consuming this med here too, like while drinking, can actually cause drowsiness, reduced breathing, coordination problems. I have those sober, and mood swings. I also have those. But with or without booze here, it may play like a really big part in impairment to like recent memory. You'll actually forget something you literally just did. I guess if you take too many of them, you're drinking. Like say you get up to go take a piss and you come back and you gotta go get a glass of water, but you forget to piss and you don't know why you got up. So yeah, stuff like that. And all long-term use just gets even worse. Over time, there would be some psychological tests here that would go on into his adolescence. Now, results on this described him as being a risk-taker, having a rash willingness to court danger. He's likely inclined to brood or harbor grudges. So in short, that means like he would have unfriendly feelings towards another person, usually for something past related. And they might think or dwell on this when that other person is around. Now, there's also a test here that got taken here. This is the MAC-I test. So this is designed to for children, actually between the ages of 13 and 19. So this takes about a half-hour time frame. So this assesses their mental health. Now, some teens would reach out for like social approval, it found. Other teens just did things a certain way to gain power. Other results like that. And even though he was getting help for his drug use, like, it didn't stop him from slowing down. And soon enough, this would just lead him to, like, numerous run-ins with police, more breaches, more arrests, and eventually jail time would be a thing. So he would spend some time in and out of Waterville. So Waterville here, for those that don't know, this is located in Waterville, Kings County, Nova Scotia. Located at 1442 County Hope Road. Now, this place opened its doors back in 1988, but before his first set of charges and everything here, his mom and his stepdad had noticed that his drug use had totally cranked up to an all-time high. So he was having wicked bad outbursts. They didn't know what to do, and they knew that he had favored knives. So they ended up locking up all the knives in the home at one point or another because they were just that terrified that he'd grab them and do something ridiculous. His mom became wicked worrisome about this, and so did his stepdad. Now, sometimes Melvin would disappear for days on end, and both the mom and stepdad would just, get worried shitless or whatever, and she would go put on her coat and go out and look for her son. Now, she didn't want him getting in any trouble because he was already on probation and conditions and everything, so she went to go help him out before he got in too much shit. So she would drive around, look for him, and over time, she found out where he was hanging out. So she'd go into like these random drug houses and shit and bring him home. There's one time there that she ended up at a house of a known criminal that had spent time in jail, and she didn't give a fuck. She wanted to kick in his door and get her son, because that's where she found out where he was. And she ended up doing that, going in and getting Melvin back. She'd find him all, like, messed up or whatever, though. Like, the drug use got to the point where, like, he'd have excessive nosebleeds or whatever, and he actually overdosed on 2 separate occasions. And Melvin did not have any memory of doing so. And Shannon tried. Like, his mom wanted him to get better. Eventually, he just got worse and worse, because he just didn't want the help. Then, maybe if he would have got the help, he would have just went down a different path in life, right? Like if he would have realized his fucking drug use and everything was messing with everything, but you gotta wanna have, like, ambition to get help or whatever, right? And even, like, thoughts of being, like, rejected here, like, that would be another thing that would weigh on him, because, like, when his mom went to Ontario there, it's thought that he had a little bit of abandonment issues here. I mean, and that in turn leaves you, like, angry, bitter. You carry all that shit around with you, right? It just becomes excess baggage. And eventually one day you'll just fucking lose it. Now, around the time Melvin had received his first set of charges here, he was placed into a group home. So this right here, this happened after his mom had made arrangements with community services, because Melvin had pulled a knife on his stepsister. So there's not much he could do, right? He was just out of control. And he bounced around from group home to group home. And this would, like, get him to cause trouble here a little bit, because he didn't really feel wanted there or whatever. And this would add, like, a whole different new list of charges to him, too. Because it was documented here that by the district health authority that he'd been in possession of knives. So he would store them in his mattress, and he actually threatened a boy who stayed there along with his step-parents or whatever, foster parents. And, yeah, then Melvin proceeded to stab a sofa. So it was just nuts, like, even with his time, like, going to, like, junior high and stuff, too, like, in between all that, like, it didn't pan out. He left school midway through the second, 7th grade term, and this was back in November of 2006. And there were some that, like, spoke highly of him, right? Like, if some say, like, if he would have asserted himself more and didn't get into, like, heavy use of pills and shit, then he would have made it a lot farther. There was a support worker here that made mention that he was a good little guy, and he was just very troubled. While another had mentioned that it's been quite some time since she had to deal with such behavior. While another had labeled Skeete a high risk and extremely compulsive. So these were all the notes that were taken on him through all, like, his appointments and everything. Now, there were drug abuse programs that they try to get him in, like, to try to take part in, and he did attend, like, a 2-day program or whatever, but since he didn't agree to residential treatment, or whatever, like, he couldn't get into it, because there was no treatment to be had unless he literally wanted to, like, put forth the effort and go seek help for his addictions, which he didn't do. Like, he'd go to the odd course or whatever there, but, like, to go into a place, actually get signed in, and you couldn't leave until you were detoxed or whatever, like, yeah, that didn't fly for him. On Valentine's Day 2007, he'd now be charged with mischief. So mischief is like destroying or damaging somebody's property, rendering it useless or inoperative. Now, by the time he was actually charged with all this, like, court-wise and shit, he had accumulated a bunch of other charges, so this would just continue on like clockwork over the next few years. He'd have, like, 58 convictions, something stupid like that. And this was just how life was day in, day out, right? And addictions suck. Like, even for the meds, like, that he was, like, very fond of, I'm sure there were others that were on top of that. Now, even long-term use, this can lead to, like, tremors, impair your memory, cause irritability, and restlessness. Now, Melvin was well aware of these issues, and he did spend some time in Waterville and everything. He was interviewed up there. There was just a couple things he wanted to do, so he began to describe his 3 wishes. 1, to get my ass out of here. 2, get in a rehab program. And 3 was to go to anger management. So he tried. He wanted all these things in play. And he did agree that he had anger problems, and he made mention that his mom thinks I'm a nutcase, and honestly, I think so too, he said. So, like, it just sucks that everybody had that mentality, and even when you're not so
high up with yourself or your self-esteem or whatever, you always get that low self-esteem. You think you're fucking worthless, or you think you're crazy, and all the above, whatever. It's how it goes. It sucks, but like, there's just a couple things here too that I wanted to touch base on, like all his like trauma from like abandonment and stuff. Like, some think that this kind of happened around the time that his mom went to Ontario for work, plus being in like group homes and all that other stuff. Like, that wasn't a place that he could call home, you know? He should have just been at home, and yeah, just everything else. I get why his parents had no control to kick him out or whatever. Like, they should have just, I don't know, figured something out, I guess. But I mean, even back in the time, then you gotta think about how mental health was really fucking treated back then, too. It's a lot more, like, there's a lot more advancements and everything now in 2024 than there would have been fucking back then. I mean, things always progress, tests, everything else, but, yeah. What was it here? Where was I at here? Oh, yeah, he had an assessment there one time. This would make mention that he was unable to manage his emotions, his behavior, while using substances. And he was beyond the control of his parents. So he'd end up, like, going through a lot of counseling, a bunch of charges over the next few years, eventually house arrest. He'd stay at a couple places, like his grandfather's. He'd go back to his mom and stepdad's place. And even, like, I don't know, the parents had a plan, and like with kind of a play in his counseling and all that, because they would start going with him. So I mean, that's the initiative that they should have been fucking taking. And this just taught him like ways to strengthen his bond with his mother and her bond with him, everything else, right? And all while doing all this, he would just accumulate new breaches, new charges, and then eventually he'd have to go up and check in with his probation officer every little once in a while or whatever. And it just sucks here that he was doing all this, like, treatment, counseling and everything, trying to get a relationship, be closer to his mom, and it wasn't really happening because he just kept getting in shit and just, like, put in fucking jail for a bit and then coming back out. September 20th, 2007, he received 24 months probation, and new conditions were set in place. So, a few days after this, he ended up getting in more shit, and then he breached those conditions he pretty much just got. He ended up, like, stealing some items. He was brandishing a knife around. He made threats with that knife against some cab driver dude. And, yeah, like, I guess that was just a couple more things that he was doing. And it was December 16th, 2007 here. It said that he was sentenced to a 315-day custody and supervision order. So this means that he's allowed to serve his sentence in the community, but it's under strict, like, supervision, conditions, everything else. But, I mean, this gives the guy, like, freedom to do, like, example, go to school for different courses, classes, go to work. But he didn't really go to school anymore. He wasn't working. He was just doing drugs and whatever else. So, one old counselor that he had, that McDonald lady, she was talking about, like, this course here that she had. There was one course called Calm, and this was brought on by, like, another counselor or whatever. So Calm kind of means, like, controlling anger and learning to manage it. And there's another course here that the McDonald lady was talking about. This was called Choices. Now, both of these would have been suitable for him, but they didn't start up until, like, 2008, so it was a year later, so it was 2007 now. And even when these courses, like, were set up here for him, like, these were all community-based, he didn't really have the pleasure of attending them due to being back in jail for a bunch of shit that he did, so it's just weird how, like, he'd go in and whatever, and these weren't really offered in jail, but it was just a vicious cycle for him or whatever. But I mean, eventually these courses did get added into jail, so it would help them while they were in there, because they can't really help them when they're on the outside, right? Now, 2007 here, it says that he pucked a guy in the mouth here for saying just a bunch of shit, just running his mouth, whatever. So he got like 30 days added on to whatever he was doing already. And it was just repeat. And like even with the whole like being in and out of jail thing, like that was just always on the go. And his mom eventually became like kind of concerned. Because what if he got out and then he'd just be able to flip out again? They weren't able to control him. And, she just became like a worrisome and everything, right? And she was probably right. Because, like, at one point here, like when he got out of jail, he was drinking everything. He actually threatened to stab her. So, I mean, at least she was thinking ahead, I guess, on her part.
And this is just how shit went. This, vicious cycle, whatever, right? Now, fast forward to March 22nd, 2009. Now, his mom contacted police. She reported a curfew breach. So, police came down, looked for Melvin. He took off. He was found not far from her house. And then he was released on a promise to appear. And that, folks, is an agreement made by the accused individual that they'll show up to court at a later date. So, they'll answer for those charges here that they're charged with tonight. They'll let go, whatever. So he returned home, cops dropped him back off, and then he ended up taking a swing at his stepfather, so he was immediately taken back into custody. And this is just how shit went, back and forth. And then he would go between like different family members to live with. March 27th, 2009, Melvin was allowed to live with his grandfather, and he would be under house arrest. And this did go well for a bit, he didn't mess around too much there. And eventually, he showed interest in boxing. So there was a Sydney boxing club back home there. This is down the north end. Now, I'm not sure if there was one in the Pear. I can't remember that far back. I didn't really travel too far. I've been to the Pear a handful of times, whatever, a dozen times. It's, they might have like a community center or something there. I'm not too sure. I'd had to ask around. But, I'm going to try to think of the boxing club's name here. So, he was pretty good at boxing, it was something that he enjoyed, because he was allowed to actually go here on part of some conditions, and it didn't take him long for him to get in shit either, though. Was it October 13th, 2009 here, he was sent to live with his grandmother. That was Mrs. Matheson. So, he was prohibited to have, like, any contact with his stepdad, whatever, right? Wasn't allowed to hang around with riffraff and shit. So, Melvin here, when he was staying there, like, he really didn't hang out with his friends too much. She actually saw them as, like, an older, like, bad influence or whatever, because they were a couple years older than him. She never saw him do any drugs or be under the influence of anything while he stayed there, sorry. And things went good for a little bit. Like, he ended up just chilling for a little while, and then just fucking sporadically, he'd go and rob a liquor store. He did a break and enter. He got away with, like, what was it, like $775? And this just added on more charges for him. Now, this was around, like his fifth sentencing now? So, yeah, it was getting up there. So he was sent back to Waterville for a little bit, and this was January of 2010. And it just sucks, like, he should have just stuck with that boxing stuff. Like, he was doing really good at that. But now he's just headed back to jail. So, even the boxing would make a guy more focused, everything, right? It's said here that he had taken, like, drugs during, like, the course of this, but he began training, like, hard as fuck. He didn't really drink that much, because while he was training, it was more so about control, doing everything else, like getting his punches in, doing everything. And more so he could stay focused, right? So he would be totally, like, work on his timing and just do what he fucking loved, right? Kind of thing. Because he wanted to turn his life around, just stay out of trouble, get off probation, you know what I mean? But life sucks sometimes, and shitty choices are fucking made. Everybody's dealt fucking different cards in life. We're all dealt a different fucking hand. And all the drug use, the drinking, whatever, like, it created a lot of instability in his life, especially around his family, everything too.
Now, some police even describe Melvin as like one for having no respect for his family, no respect for anyone else, and he just didn't fucking care about anything. So when he got out of jail there, like all the boxing stuff, he didn't pick back up. And yeah, like he was just slipping back into his old ways. He would just get into more trouble. And eventually he'd just go apeshit here the summer of 2010. He uttered death threats to an arresting police officer there while he was drunk. And he would also assault a young woman while he was intoxicated. This was at a separate time. He pushed her to the ground, punched her in the head a few times and whatnot, and just wasn't a good scene. So yeah, he also did a couple things like that. So, like I previously mentioned here too, like all the drugs that Skeete was using, like the Ribotril, probably other medications, drinking alcohol, all that stuff will like alter your mood. It'll make you into a completely different person. And beating up a woman's just completely fucked. Like those actions there can stem from straight up anger, poor self-esteem. Well, I guess who doesn't have poor self-esteem these days? It can come from like natural meanness, the way that people socialize. So like if you're hanging around with a bad crew, you see all their actions, you're gonna think it's okay, but in reality it's not. Some guys are just, go out, get what you want type deal. And sometimes romance can take a play in this too. Jealousy about something, possessiveness, insecurities. And I'm actually not sure who the woman was that he had assaulted, because at the time Skeete was at the age of, probably 16, 17, so he was under the age of 18, and so was she. So due to that, her name wasn't released. And, I'm sure there's probably, other crimes here, too, that we don't even know about that weren't reported or whatever. And it's probably for the better, too. I mean, we don't need to know that shit. And I did find some stuff here that Skeete had denied this assault here. So, he said it never happened. But later on, at a later date, he pled guilty to the assault. So, whatever, maybe he just wanted to get it out of the way or something. Now, November 1st, 2010, Melvin was charged with failures to comply, mischief, theft, and a break and enter. Now, this time it was a different liquor store. There's a few liquor stores back home there around the way. And he was released November 9th into the care of his grandfather. So this happened with a responsible person undertaking. So now he had to go live with his grandfather and not get into trouble. The grandfather, Melvin, lived down in, Whitney Pear. So this was up on William Street. Now, William Street's just off Hankard and Lawyer. And it's like a side street. Nice little place, little neighborhood. There's a church not far from the area. And the pier actually has a population of a little over 4,700. So let me give you a quick little history lesson here of the pier, dear. So it derives its name from Henry Melville Whitney. This guy here is an American industrialist. He established Domco, Dominion Coal Company, back in the 1890s. So he was born October 22nd, 1839. He died January 25th, 1923. And then he founded a couple things along the way. Dominion Iron and Steel Company, and my all-time favorite, the Sydney Steel Corporation. And I've waited for the day that I can incorporate that into another episode. So, the steel mill here was responsible for the neighborhood's economic growth. This was during the 20th century. It also played a part in its decline. And the neighborhood here is kind of centered around Victoria Road. So it stretches north. And there's like a railway overpass too. This is around the edge of the steel mill property, kind of through a section of road known as Dead Man's Turn. There's also amazing local restaurants there. There's a little bakery. I used to get Bernie's Pizza. It used to be Buddy would make pizza, just be cold pizza, you just take it home, whatever. Really good stuff. And there's also like the Henry Street Pub. That's a good time there too. Couple other things here, like there's Archie Nathanson's. Sorry, that's like a clothing shop or whatever back in the day. And another pub there. There's the was it the Thistle? Yeah, that was a good time there. Wicked little spot here. Just to give you guys like a little breakdown of the whole area too. I mean, great place. So no place like home, I guess. Melvin Sr., the grandfather. So he's from the Pear. His parents were Lemuel, that was his dad, and Olga, that was his mom. So Lemuel and Olga Skeete. So this was who Melvin would have been named after, was Melvin Sr. So Melvin Jr., Melvin Sr., you get the idea. Now, the family had 6 kids, so there was Jonathan. He was actually the first black person to become an RCMP officer. Now, he was given a post as well, so he got to move around a little bit here. Everybody in the community just loved the guy, right? Now, his friends respected what he did, and he had no barriers, right? Like, he was just wicked nice dude. He'd go out and do his thing. And he graduated from Dalhousie before he got stationed here at a few places. There was Saskatchewan, a couple other spots. Now, he passed away in '87 from cancer, unfortunately. He was only 35. Now, there's a little plaque of him here. This is up in the junior high school of the Pear. It's just to remind everybody about this guy's life achievements. And Melvin Sr., now, during this guy's life, he worked at Nova Tours, CBRM, and Transport Canada. So he enjoyed driving, like something that he really cared for, right? He was really passionate about. He actually drove buses and everything too. He enjoyed to go fishing, spending time with his family, and this is who Melvin Jr. would again come over, do the whole house arrest, sorry. And yeah, he would just be under conditions now not to drink, not to use drugs. And now, Melvin Jr. wasn't subject to any controls or any supervision or anything like that. So he's pretty much got free roam of the place here. And to me, that doesn't really sound like the greatest idea ever, but I mean, here we are, right? It was around this time where Skeete would start hanging around with a girl named Brittany Green. So Brittany was just totally awesome, very popular girl. So Skeete was around 16 years old at the time, and she was about 17. So she went to school in Glace Bay. She attended Glace Bay High, played on the basketball team. Just a amazing player there. She loved to play. She was just going really far with it, right? Now, her jersey number was number 10, and she played some games for the St. Michael's Warriors. That was her team. Now, she was totally invested in this, like I said. She went to basketball camps there just to improve her game and get some pointers, everything else like that. Practice, and all that makes perfect, I guess, right? So it was just a wonderful hobby for her. Now, Brittany here was born in Glace Bay, Nova Scotia, Canada, on October 11th, 1993. So she was born to Teresa Green and Father Stuart McKinnon at the St. Rita's Hospital up in Sydney. Now, Skeete and Brittany started to see each other over time, and by, I believe, December 2010, they'd been dating for a few months. So they seemed very close, affectionate, very, devoted teenage couple. Now, from October to December here, they would hang out somewhere between 4 and 5 times a week. So they were pretty happy. Some recall there was no fighting, no arguing. They'd sit around and watch TV or whatever, and they rarely argued. But, I mean, you're spending all your time inside, all the crew that you're bringing with you in there, they're only going to see what you allow them to see, right? But there were others that said this was a little different. Now, other friends said that the whole thing was just a little shaky, and they didn't get along that well. So, it's said here that they argued a lot, actually, and they spent a lot of time on William Street. That was at Melvin Sr.'s place. So, maybe spending time in the house, I guess, is a little different than, what people see on the outside or whatever, right? You never know. Because, I mean, like, there's two sides to everything going forward, right? And, I don't know, we all know how Melvin Jr. was, so, I mean, why would we think that anything will be different with Brittany? But, I mean, they seemed happy, whatever, so, I mean, they just continued on with their relationship. What I meant by, what we know about Melvin was meaning his addiction to pills, alcohol, and everything else. Now, Brittany also did prescription pills with Melvin. Now, she would use her meds that she had, she'd share with him, and vice versa. Now, she was prescribed some meds through her program, Choices. Now, I mentioned that a little bit earlier. So she had, Zopiclone. Now, that's used to treat insomnia. There was Fluoxetine, that's an antidepressant. Well, you can also call them Prozac. And folks, it's not really hard to take a guess, how the couple would spend their time down on William Street, right? They'd end up, drinking, doing medications, whatever. Now, she was doing good for a little bit there. Now, her Choices program, this was available up in Halifax. So, she would head up there to receive help with her life choices and everything else, or whatever else that she was going through at that time. Now, she slipped down into, certain substances, drinking. I mean, nobody is perfect, folks, and I'll mention that right now. So, by going to these programs here, it did seem to help her, a heck of a lot, and that's just a fabulous thing. But it just sucks that she got back into it, with Melvin and his drug use, and, it was just all the prescription pill shit, right? Now, some folk didn't like that Melvin and her were together. She also drank, did whatever Melvin did, right? But both of them using and drinking, I mean, it was a little much there. And even at Melvin Sr.'s house here, he had a bunch of pills that was kicking around for his MS. And at one point here, she had actually ran away to be with Melvin. She was just staying there doing whatever. So, he wasn't all the biggest influence on her or whatever. I'm sure he held some sway, but, people's choices are their choices too. Melvin's mother, Shannon, actually had called Brittany's mother on 2 occasions there to mention that she should keep Brittany clear from Melvin. But, who's to say anything really went farther than that? I have no idea, right? So the couple would just stay there, and they'd rifle through Melvin Sr.'s pills. Now, he had, sleeping pills, Xanax. This was for anxiety or whatever. And sometimes they'd just take them right in front of the grandfather, and he would say nothing. So, he knew about Melvin's behavior prior to all this, and, he just didn't try to stop him or anything like that. And while she was in Choices, Brittany's mom was really happy that she was getting better and what have you, but she wasn't too keen on the relationship portion of it, right? She did kind of try to keep a watchful eye or whatever, but that's all she could do, I guess. But, even though she was leery on things, I don't know, there's a few people here it just didn't sit quite well with, right, about everything going on with the drugs and everything else, but I also wanted to touch base here on a couple things before we wind down here. Now, I just wanted to talk about how Melvin was actually pretty happy with Brittany, if you can look past all the addictions and everything else. She was probably the only good thing, in his life at that time or whatever, right? And hanging with Melvin Sr., at his place and everything, Melvin not being under strict conditions or, any supervision or anything like that, this would, totally be just a little bit nuts. There was nobody there to like, look after Melvin or see if anything went wrong or whatever, right? And because of that, like, all this medication and everything, like, it wouldn't be such a, like, a fairy tale relationship for much longer, but, like, the MS was bad on Melvin Sr., like, he had a hard time getting around too, like, if he heard, like, a heated argument or something, because that often went on sometimes or whatever, right, but he'd give a holler or whatever just to see if everything was cool, or, like, he'd speak up and be like, hey, what's going on, whatever, right, and he would just make sure that no trouble was going on, but you know how Melvin is, I guess, just, yeah, everything's good kind of thing, right?
So, one last thing here. The court documents that I used in this episode, they can be found on Kane. So if you search on there, you can search any documents for cases, what have you. There's file numbers here that I have, and for like the court documents regarding this case. And it'll also give you all the documents that revolve around it. They're also public knowledge. So these file numbers are as follows. 225-7960, there's 225-7973, and 225-7974. So this is where I found the information regarding details of this case. So the testimonies, everything, what have you, that I've went through, all of this information is online here. When I had mentioned the part about Melvin and Brittany having easy access to medication at their grandfather's, so this had come from paragraph 105 of court document 225-7974. Now, it stated when Melvin was released on a responsible person's undertaking into the care of his grandfather, he had an absolute prohibition from possessing or consuming alcohol or drugs. He wasn't allowed to be hanging around with anyone with a criminal record, and Melvin was on these conditions when Melvin Sr. had got him out of jail and let him live with him. So the grandmother had testified in court here that Melvin's grandfather had not been a good influence on him. Now, as trial evidence revealed, drugs and alcohol were readily available, and Melvin was not subject to any controls or any supervision. It wasn't very long before something very tragic would happen this night. This was December 3rd, 2010. A whole shit show would be unraveled in less than a 20-minute time frame. So this right here would actually change the lives of a lot of people going forward. And with that, folks, I'm going to leave you guys on a little cliffhanger here. So this will be a continued episode here. So this will be my first part to a part 2 episode. And part 2, I'll be working on this with Brittany's cousin, Aaron. So we're going to talk here and try to figure out some stuff that she knows. Some other, like, good things, bad things, I would assume, because this is what the tales that I do. Now, I just want you to stay tuned for that one, guys, so we'll have everything together, then maybe we could, hop on here and do some other stuff here. So I'm going to try to get her on to do, like, a segment with me here, too, so me and her can talk back and forth. And I do want to thank all the ones that did help me with this, like, for all the messages, all the help, like, all the decent messages I got. I got a lot of shitty messages too, and whatever, like, I haven't been told to go fuck myself before, right? Fuck, get something new. Now, everything else, like, that's going on with this, like, I'm gonna tie up, and it's pretty cool that there's Cape Breton folk out there willing to assist me on this, like, when I ask my questions and online or whatever, like, people just answer me and they shoot the shit with me, which is cool. Other people, not so much, they fucking lose their shit, right? But that's Cape Breton mentality. I mean, fuck, everybody has that. I still have that sometimes. So, with that, I guess, I guess that'll be the end of the episode here. So I just want to tell you guys, just, stay safe. And, everything that happened in this, like, it's gonna be bad. So, I mean, we'll get into that. And, I mean, this stuff needs to be told. And I will have this up for you eventually, so I'll fire some other stuff at you here in the meantime. Now, take care, folks. I hope you guys have a wicked day. Thanks for tuning back into Twisted Tales.
And I just wanted to edit like one last thing here, because somebody messaged me on it there. I made a mistake when I said there was Jonathan Skeete was the first black RCMP officer. Like, when I said that, I meant that he was not the very first. He was the first in Cape Breton, not the first ever. That title actually goes to Carl Campy Crawford. Now, he joined the police service in 1964, and he was the first black city police officer. And old Campy here lived until he was 64 years old. Now, I wanted to make that right before more people get pitchforks out and just do whatever. So, that's all I wanted to add. Have a wonderful night, folks.
The Cape Breton teenager has been sentenced to life in prison for stabbing his girlfriend more than 100 times back in 2010. Melvin Skeete Jr. was convicted of second-degree murder last summer, but his name couldn't be revealed because he was 16 at the time of the attack. Well, that changed today when a judge sentenced him as an adult.
Melvin Skeete's lawyer had been asking that he be sentenced as a youth because he was only 16 when he stabbed Brittany Green to death. That was in December 2010. He stabbed her 104 times. It's taken 2 years for this case to wind its way through the justice system. But in the end, Judge Ann Derrick said she wasn't satisfied that a youth sentence would be sufficient to protect society or turn Skeete's life around. He's been in trouble with the law since the age of 12, amassing dozens of convictions, and he has problems with both drugs and alcohol. As he was being sentenced as an adult, members of Green's family waved a mocking goodbye, prompting a profane outburst from Skeete. He had to be quieted by both the judge and his family. While he is getting a life sentence, he will be eligible to start applying for parole in just 5 years because he's getting credit for the 2 years he's already spent in custody. Weirdsdale.